Welcome to the Sunday worship service of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. I'm John Sallée, a member of the First UU Worship Associate Team. This meeting house, which we humbly acknowledge is in and on unceded Abenaki land, serves as a sacred gathering space for the members and friends of this congregation, and all who hope for and commit to creating a world of kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity for all beings. You are welcome here, and we are grateful for your participation in this worship. Unitarian Universalists acknowledge that the divine can be called by many names, each insufficient, but approaching fullness when in conversation together. So we are committed to divinity as process and as a presence in our community, regardless of how we each name it. This month, we celebrate Climate Justice Month and are joined at this service by Judd Lawrie, chair of the First UU Climate Justice Team. Nature is important to many UUs because it exposes connection and the divinity in connection. There are a number of ways to get involved at First UU, including coffee hour, which happens from 10:45 until noon every Sunday. At 11, we divide into breakout rooms so everyone gets a chance to interact with a small group. To learn more about our faith, our meeting house, and our society and its activities, you can click the link on YouTube or explore our website, uusociety.org. Let us know you're visiting. We welcome the opportunity to welcome you personally.
Light your chalice with this one. We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. The call to worship today is from Leslie Ahuva Fales, and it's a prayer which she wrote, but she included in it a sentence which she says is an adaptation of a Hebrew prayer called the Shekeheyanu. In Leslie's words, it's a blessing for any time you do something you haven't done in a long time, or something that you're doing for the first time, or for when you survive a close call, or when you're about to do something adventurous. All that we have been separately and all that we will become together is stretched out before and behind us like stars scattered across a canvas of sky. We stand at the precipice, arms locked together like tandem skydivers working up the courage to jump. Tell me, friends, what have we got to lose? Our fear of failure? Our mistrust of our own talents? What have we got to lose? A poverty of the spirit, the lie that we are alone? What wonders await us in the space between the first leap and the moment our feet, our wheels, however we move our bodies across this precious earth, touch down softly on unknown soil? What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? Blessed are you, Spirit of life, who has sustained us, enlivened us, and enabled us to reach this moment. Give us courage in our leaping and gratitude in our landing, and share with us in the joy of a long and fruitful ministry together. Let us worship.
Good morning. I wonder if any of you have a daily gratitude practice. I hear from people more and more often that they have some regular way of focusing in, taking stock of what they feel thankful for. The book I'm going to share today is called Giving Thanks, a Native American Good Morning Message. The Haudenosaunee, the indigenous nations sometimes referred to as the Iroquois, share an ancient tradition of regularly giving thanks to the earth. So it seemed to me like this book and a simplified English version of that blessing was the perfect thing for today, this morning, when we're celebrating Earth Day. The author, Chief Jake Swamp, is pictured here dressed for a special occasion. He was a Mohawk. He passed away about 11 years ago. The Mohawk are one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee, and they're the nation that's closest to us. As you know, we here in Burlington are on the unceded territory of the Western Abenaki people. But when we look across the lake, and I don't know about you, but I look across the lake every day, we see the traditional lands of the Mohawk people. And Chief Jake Swamp, here he is laughing, lived across the lake from us and a little bit west, so it would take about 2.5 hours from where I'm sitting right now to drive there by car. The illustrator of this book, Erwin Printup Jr., is a Cayuga Bear Clan artist from Tuscarora Reservation. So that's a little bit further from us, maybe a 7-hour drive. Chief Swamp said that Mohawk parents traditionally teach their children to start each morning by giving thanks to the earth. He said that this message is based on the belief that the natural world is a rare and precious gift. And in the book, he addresses the stars and the moon and even the smallest blades of grass as if they are all part of the same great family. That reminded me a lot of our 7th Unitarian Universalist principle. Here it is: respect the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. So let's keep that in mind as we hear this book. To be a human being is an honor, and we offer thanksgiving for all the gifts of life. Mother Earth, we thank you for giving us everything we need. Thank you, deep blue waters around Mother Earth, for you are the force that takes thirst away from all living things. We give thanks to green grasses that feel so good against our bare feet, for the cool beauty you bring to Mother Earth's floor. Thank you, good foods from Mother Earth, our life sustainers, for making us happy when we are hungry. Fruit and berries, we thank you for your color and sweetness. We are all thankful to good medicine herbs for healing us when we are sick. Thank you, all the animals in the world, for keeping our precious forests clean. All the trees in the world, we are thankful for the shade and warmth you give us. Thank you, all the birds in the world, for singing your beautiful songs for all to enjoy. We give thanks to you, gentle 4 winds, for bringing clean air for us to breathe from the 4 directions. Thank you, Grandfather Thunder Beings, for bringing rain to help all living things grow. Elder brother sun, we send thanks for shining your light and warming Mother Earth. Thank you, Grandmother Moon, for growing full every month to light the darkness for children and sparkling waters. We give you thanks, twinkling stars, for making the night sky so beautiful and for sprinkling morning dewdrops on the plants. Spirit protectors of our past and present, we thank you for showing us ways to live in peace and harmony with one another. And most of all, thank you, Great Spirit, for giving us all these wonderful gifts so we will be happy and healthy every day and every night.
Join me for a few moments of meditation, reflection, prayer, whatever is your custom. Take a breath. There are so many thoughts and feelings, so much fear and anger at the world, our world, today and this week and every week, or so it seems. We have mass shootings. They are a reality. They keep happening in workplaces, in homes, in grocery stores, in spas. People just living their lives suddenly gone, stolen from those who loved them as much as they loved life itself. And young Black men, Black children and women, attacked, humiliated, and killed by those whose job is to protect, not to harm. And amid and among and mixed up with all of those sorrows is so much hope, too. For one thing, because of the vaccine, imperfect and miraculous nevertheless, and persistent hard work by a bunch of really smart people. The virus is still with us, but it is not winning, not right now. And some grandparents and grandchildren, some friends and siblings are beginning to be able to be with one another, even to hug and to laugh. So much joy. Each of us carries our own joys and sorrows, our own fear and uncertainty, our own strength and courage. Remember, the joys and sorrows of each, including you, are held in the joys and sorrows of all. A prayer by Anonymous. I am afraid of nearly everything, of darkness, hunger, war, children mutilated. But most of all, I am afraid of what I might become, reconciled to injustice, resigned to fear and despair, lulled into a life of apathy. Unchain my hope. Make me strong. Stretch me toward the impossible, that I may work for what ought to be. The hungry fed, the enslaved freed, the suffering comforted, the peace accomplished. Take a breath and rest with me for a moment in the silence. Amen, and blessed be.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together and no longer day thunderclouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreams, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and our vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope, not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
Walks on our back 40 are a sacred ritual. They officially start when Melissa or I lift the long lead off the hook. Our old hound sees and she starts dancing like a pup. When we get out by the marsh, the occasional vole and scores of frogs scatter as we walk, reminding me that these are the less diligent individuals. Many more are gone long before I saw them. I think about the countless lives that have lived and do live on this stretch of land between the state road at the front and the highway a mile away at the far edge of the property. A century ago, that state road just outside my door carried illicit alcohol past the federal agents who were stationed where I now sleep. And half a century before that, it ran 500 yards to the west, just on the other side of the embankment over which we throw our Christmas trees. In the days of the Vermont Republic, the parcel was owned by Ira Allen, one of the founders of the Green Mountain Boys, the militia that would become the Vermont National Guard, in which my son and I now serve. It ran all the way to the Canadian border, just like the newer highway, which, while louder than we would like, has grown eerily quiet in this past year of closures and fear of an invisible, unintentional, viral enemy. You walk back and see the land stretched with the possibility of all those lives, of all the crops that have been and will be cultivated here. We often see our landlord's son, who's by trade a concrete cutter and by inclination an artist and an accidental poet of the disappearing Vermont dialect. He and his constant companion Noodles the Borzoi drive out there most evenings to watch the sunset, rapt at the thought, not that it will someday be his, but that it might then match the photographs of Provence, which he keeps with him. This past summer, while awaiting the final few board approvals necessary to receive my commission, I turned 40. For all but the last year before that, I lived in Chicago, which is a very flat place to live. And for as much and as long as I loved hiking there, none of it compared to here for beauty, but especially for incline. So there seemed no better way to celebrate the milestone birthday and my newly required commitment to personal courage and fitness than to yacht from the top of Mount Mansfield. So on the morning of my 40th birthday, my wife, younger son, and I climbed the mountain. I had only been to the top of 2 other mountains, one barely a third as high and the other less than a quarter. Both offered their reason to know I needed to summit Mansfield. When we had been hiking through the woods for several hours and the deciduous trees disappeared, then the conifers topped no more than 20 feet. Then they were barely tall enough to shade us as we climbed past. Then finally, they were just stunted bushes holding on tight to the rocky soil. Then the soil receded and left mostly bare rock, leaving us to scramble. And that's when the anxiety really struck. I knew that some of the tricky spots we had come up would be even trickier going down. And there was a longer, gentler descent path we planned, but the intersection was still above us, and I could either allow myself to indulge in fear and become more frozen and powerless, or I could keep going. Most of all, though, I had my family with me. I did not need to impress or posture for them. They know that hiking this mountain is a challenge to my fears. They know that every time they talk about skydiving or rock climbing or any of the other adrenaline arts, I'm quiet at best. And they also supported my becoming a chaplain. Not the kind of support that says, yes, you can do it. The kind that says, it is completely clear that this is who you have always been. We will move wherever we need to, sell whatever we need to, and get you to and through seminary and internships so you can support those soldiers. Mount Mansfield is one of only 3 places in Vermont where you can see alpine tundra, an ecosystem populated with organisms that thrive in extreme conditions at the top of the mountain. From a distance, it's mostly gray rock cut with mossy paths and patches. Up close, there are so many colors and textures: white flowers, rusty leaves, dark purple, and deep red berries, hugging the rocks against soaring views. None of the 3 of us had ever seen anything like it before. It was not the first and will not be the last, but summiting Mount Mansfield that day was unforgettable. I hope to hike and maybe even climb more mountains, both taller and more far-flung. I read recently about the Krumholtz zone, the immediately subalpine swath where common trees from the lower elevations grow into unfamiliar, seemingly contorted shapes. It seems from that description that we should want to scurry past to the serene alpine expanse, but I am not so sure. Those contortions are unexpected and thus unexpectedly beautiful. And it is also where I transformed, where the safety of the tall trees suddenly receded and left me feeling untethered, where I would previously have become frozen by fear. This would be the place where I decided to soldier on, where I could be the same thing I had always been, but also unexpectedly courageous.
I am sharing today's service with Judd Lawrie of First UU's Climate Justice team. I asked Judd to do the sermon with me so that we could talk about what that group is doing and Judd and why he's involved and what climate justice is. You'll see all of that in a few minutes. But right now, Judd is going to introduce our beneficiary for this month's Share the Plate offering, 350 Vermont.
Good morning. I'm Judd Lawrie. I'm chair of the climate justice team here at First UU. I've been a longtime member of 350.org and a big-time fan of Bill McKibben for quite some time. Bill, as you probably know, is co-founder of the 350.org. Shortly after I landed in Vermont in 2012, I joined 350 Vermont. I continue to be impressed with their creative events, their organizing abilities to build support, and dedication to the climate cause. For example, its 2019 5-day sacred walk from Middlebury to Montpelier to demand legislative action on climate justice issues in Vermont. Their protests of proposed pipelines in the state, lobbying in the legislature, its Mother Up project to encourage families to rise up for climate action. So I'm quite pleased that we can show our support in that way. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. It is with gratitude we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
It's 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as the mammals, reptiles, and birds were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew? I'm riding home on the coma train. I've got the voice of the Milky Way in my dreams. I have teams of scientists feeding me data daily, and pleading I immediately turn it into poetry. I want just this consciousness reached by people in range of secret frequencies contained in my speech. I am the desirous earth, equidistant to the underworld and the flesh of the stars. I am everything already lost. The moment the universe turns transparent and all the light shoots through the cosmos, I use words to instigate silence. I'm a hieroglyphic stairway in a buried Mayan city, suddenly exposed by a hurricane. A satellite circling Earth, finding dinosaur bones in the Gobi Desert. I am telescopes that see back in time. I am the precession of the equinoxes, the magnetism of the spiraling sea. I'm riding home on the Colma train, with the voice of the Milky Way in my dreams. I am myths where violets blossom from blood like dying and rising gods. I'm the boundary of time, soul encountering soul, and tongues of fire. It's 3:23 in the morning, and I can't sleep because my great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the earth was unraveling?
So that video is really haunting, Judd. The idea that our great-great-grandchildren are already asking us, what did you do when the earth was unraveling? Why do you think this is the right question to be asking now?
Well, I know that it really brought home to me kind of the mess we are leaving for our children and grandchildren to live with and cope with. We're not going to be able to go back to where we were. We're not going to go back to the way things used to be. I'm reminded of a quote by Bill McKibben in a recent book, where he said, "Our challenge ahead is going to be making a life on a tough new planet." So I turned 82 last Sunday. Been on this planet for a long, long time. I've seen a lot of evidence of the way that we as a human society are kind of ravaging and exploiting our natural resources and our planet. I like to think I've been environmentally conscious and responsible through my life. But I got to realizing that, in thinking back, kind of what I've been doing is a lot of little things, not the big things that would have made a big difference. I just didn't see soon enough how fast the climate crisis was coming at us and how severe it's going to be. So for me, the theme of this video, what did we do when we knew, really caused some soul searching. Look back and think, well, what did I do or not do? And then what should I do with my remaining years?
Yeah, those are the questions. So, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
That's a pretty impressive number, and I appreciate all your thoughts on this. I wanted to ask you another question. I think that people understand climate change and global warming, or at least we think we do. But what do you mean when you talk about climate justice? What does justice have to do with it?
Well, as you indicated, the physical impacts of climate change and the climate crisis are becoming more and more evident. The sea levels rising, the ice caps melting on the Arctic and Antarctic, the increasing storms, the severity, frequency, flooding, unbearable temperatures, droughts. So what's not so evident in watching these physical phenomena is the impacts those are having on the people who live on this planet. The tendency is for these impacts to hit harder on those who are most vulnerable and least able to cope with them. So that's where I think, have to kind of be aware of these implications for justice for those people who've been harmed the most and who need the most help in coping with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the same time, we're kind of recognizing the many intersections between the social justice issues. For example, there's economic justice, which is driven by a capitalistic system, which is not very well regulated, leading to the increased enabling and encouragement of the burning of fossil fuels, which sends more and more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And that intersects quite clearly with climate justice, the global warming piece. One example of that is when you look at global warming and what's happening in our global south, a lot of the people living in the global south are very deeply impacted and are being driven by their ancestral lands because of the droughts, the storms, the unbearable heat, the lack of fresh water, and they are starting to become what we call climate refugees. They're kind of heading our way, not just here in the US, but into Europe and so forth, trying to find a way to support their families in a more amenable climate. So I think you also had some thoughts about intersectionality that you wanted to share.
Yeah. So intersectionality is in some ways a really simple idea. It's just the telling the truth that the various injustices, the isms of our time overlap in different ways. If we just talk about one intersection here, the one that you pointed at, environmental racism, that's a term that you've used, Judd, and that other people have used as well. And what it means simply is that communities of color are unfairly, disproportionately burdened with health hazards because of the policies and practices, the deliberate policies and practices that have forced those communities to live in close proximity to sources of toxic waste, sewage, and mines. I saw that when I lived in West Virginia for sure. Landfills, power stations, even major roads, and just the particulates, the pollution in the air. A study about 10 years ago found that race is more important than socioeconomic status in predicting the location of the nation's commercial hazardous waste facilities. Race is what determines the location of those. So a question that comes up sometimes, Judd, is all this justice work that we do, why is it part of our religious community? And I think the thing that I've come to understand after a quarter century of doing ministry in congregations is that though in Unitarian Universalism, we come from lots of different places and our religious expectations and ideas are really not the same, and we value that. But one of the things that is true about all of us in our different ways is a sense of hope that things can be better, that the world and even we can be smarter, understand better, fairer, just bring more goodness into the world. And justice work is how we do that. And I think the thing that is clearer and clearer as the years go by is that we can work on this stuff individually, but when we work together in groups and in congregations, we can have so much more impact and learn more and teach each other more too along the way. So, Judd, my question to you is, why did you choose to make this the focus of your work at this time in your life and in this congregation?
Well, let me go back about a year and a half and tell you a short story about kind of what inspired me to do this. I attended a couple of meetings of the Sunrise Movement about a year and a year ago. Mm-hmm. And you probably know that's a movement of young people who are on really the front lines of the climate crisis and out there working on it in a serious way. I found them both inspiring, and dedicated. Not exactly my age cohort, with my grandchildren, I came away from that last meeting saying, okay, there's these young people out there on the front lines. What could I do to contribute to what they're doing? And I thought, well, I'm a member of the UU congregation. We do a lot of social justice work. We have an immigration justice team, racial justice team, economic justice team, no climate justice team. That would be a good way to kind of leverage what I do and care about. So we had a kickoff meeting for the proposed new team in February of 2020. They've been meeting monthly since then. Among other things, we have adopted a mission statement and a set of goals to support that mission. So the mission statement we adopted, which I'm reading from here, is that drawing from our UU values and principles, the climate justice team is called to address the escalating climate crisis through education, which inspires personal and community change, advocacy, political action, and collaboration. We are further committed to explore and address the connection between climate justice, environmental justice, and other social justice issues such as racism. So in support of that mission, we developed 5 goals. I'll go through those briefly. Goal 1 is putting our UU values into local action. Number 2 is network and connect with other faith communities. Number 3 is continue our legislative and policy-based advocacy. 4 is collaborate with and support local climate groups. And finally, explore the intersection of climate and environmental justice and racial justice.
You know, I was at that first meeting, that organizational meeting, in like one of the last days before we closed down. And the room was packed full of people. But hearing you read that mission statement and the goals, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty clear and pretty impressive. So I'm so glad. So are you still accepting new members in that group?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we, around each of those 5 goals, we have formed an action groups.
Okay.
Those are, at this point, have 1 or 2 members each. The first group, putting the UU values into local action, has 5 or 6 members, and they've been pretty energetic. They've got a couple of workshops on climate-friendly cleaning solutions for the home, climate-friendly eating, electric cars, weatherizations, heat pumps, and they got one coming up, I think, on solar panels.
Yes, indeed.
So that's all quite encouraging. We do need some more volunteers to kind of help us flesh out all the action groups. There's more work to be done. Some of them need further development, but we are asking for people who want to get engaged in this to please give me, contact me. And you can reach me at my email address, judd@lawrie.com.
Great.
Enough.
Yep.
And you can also find me in Realm.
And there is a workshop next Sunday, right? On April 25th.
Sounds right. That workshop. Yes. On the 25th at 1 o'clock.
Yep.
And the title is The Climate Crisis. What can we do?
Right. And it's going to start off with a little video, really helpful one from Bill McKibben. So it'll get us, get that conversation going. So I hope that people can join us for that. And the information for doing that is in the e-news and also on the homepage of the website.
Yes.
So do you have any concluding thoughts for us as we end here, or inspirational ideas for people?
One of the things we've talked about is, kind of what interests me in getting involved in this cause. In another organization I'm a part of, a community I belong to, is called the Mankind Project. And in that project, they put a lot of value on the elders in that community for the life experience we bring, the wisdom we carry with us. And one of the things we recognize as a responsibility, even a sacred duty of elders, is to be stewards of the earth,
Mhm.
to take care of this lovely planet and be able to pass it on for those who come behind. And I'm thinking of, for example, the indigenous people. Some indigenous people like to say, preserve, respect, and protect it for the 7 generations to come.
I actually I've always loved that idea, and I heard one indigenous person from our area explain that it's another way to think about the 7 generations is that we are paying attention to the generations behind us as well as the ones before. We're honoring our ancestors and living and doing the work that they taught us to do, and being a good ancestors for those who are coming after us. So
Very true.
it's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Judd. I really appreciate everything that you're doing at the Society, and I appreciate your being here with me today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be a freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
We extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. The Benediction by Eric Williams. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. May you go in peace.